Welcome back, guys. Here with another episode of Overwatch Champions. My name is Odin, and today's episode marks a bit of a transition. We've covered a lot of the core elements of gameplay already, and we're shifting gears to focus on some more specific points of strategy and gameplay. Today we're going to talk about attack strategies on payload maps, and more specifically covering a fairly tricky map, Watchpoint Gibraltar. If you haven't seen episodes 3 and 4, you may want to check those out before watching this, since the video will assume you understand the basics of team composition and recognizing points to attack and engage the enemy. First, let's talk about a few general attack strategies. There's choke pushing, flanking, and ultimate ball. That's a little term I use myself, I'll explain that later. I think they're pretty self-explanatory in their names, but each have many caveats depending on the map and can change dramatically from first point to second point and so on. Let's talk about the choke push. These generally rely on brute force to break through a defensive point and usually involve a core of Reinhardt, Lucio, and a Roadhog or Zarya, maybe a Reaper thrown in there as well. The goal of a choke push should be to spam damage into the enemy Reinhardt shield and any high priority targets so that you can coordinate Lucio's speed boost to quickly pressure the enemy when they're backing up and healing. A successful choke push revolves around closing the gap between your team and the defense and calling out a target to eliminate immediately, thereby effectively scattering the defense and letting your backline safely move up to support and deal with the enemy DPS and supports. Keep in mind that you should probably have a plan to follow up on a successful push, so think about who your next target will be as you push, and try to keep an eye on them so you can quickly deal with them after you secure the entry frag. For example, Genji might want to immediately dive for a support or a mid-range DPS such as Mercy or Soldier. Moving on, we have split or flank pushes, and they can be one of two things. It may be a situation where 5 players on your team are playing out a normal choke push, just to try to get the enemy to expect it, while one person is flanking to attack a support, like Reaper, Genji, Tracer, and Winston all do a pretty good job of this. This will cause the defense to divide their attention between 2 points, and give the main force a chance to take advantage of the split and push hard. On the other hand, looking at Watchpoint Gibraltar, it may be a split push where 2 or 3 players rush to the defense from a flank angle, and the reason you see most high-level teams playing away from the first point on Gibraltar is the amount of places that the attacking team can flank you from. For instance, you might have a Reinhardt, Lucio, and McCree push up the stairs on the right to the bridge out of spawn, while Zenyatta, Soldier, and Roadhog push the payload and spam damage into the enemy defending on the bridge. You throw in a good backline flanker like Winston in place of Reaper, and maybe a Genji, and the enemy team immediately finds itself in a position to lose 2 or 3 heroes before they can really react. For this reason, flanking pushes are especially effective against teams that are pushed up or out of position, where there are holes in the defense that can be easily exploited by those heroes. Lastly, we have what I refer to as the ultimate ball. This works pretty much as you'd expect. Similar to a choke push, you want to call out a target and coordinate your plan of attack, letting Lucio boost you in. However, in this case, you're combining ultimates. There's a lot of common ones, such as Graviton and Rocket Barrage, or Sound Barrier and Nano Boost with Dragon Blade. These combos are especially effective if you're able to begin a normal choke push, but it can be utilized to turn around a losing fight as well. One thing to note, however, is you should always target the teleporter or Mercy with your backline attack as quickly as possible so that your ult ball isn't immediately negated by a res. It's almost nothing worse than killing the whole team, having Mercy come in and res, and knowing that you have no ults to deal with their ults. Saving an ultimate like Reinhardt's Earthshatter for that situation where the enemy team might be resed is a great idea. And if you're able to wipe the enemy team without ulting, the aforementioned combos wreak havoc on a recently resed team as they try to get their bearings. Alright, so now that we have our attack strategies covered, let's focus on Gibraltar. This is one of the more difficult maps to attack, and we've already mentioned how a split and flank push can overwhelm defenses set up on the first point bridge, but let's look at the attack on the 2 trickiest spots of the map. The first of which is the 4 doors at hangars. Once the main door closes, if your team wipes without moving the payload to at least below the airship, it can be extremely difficult to get back through those doors. You have a few options though, and in this point it's absolutely critical that you coordinate with your team. If you're up on time and you're feeling confident, you can try to use a push to scout out the defense. By speeding through one of the doors, preferably the right door, you can quickly spread out behind the boxes and get an idea of what the enemy team is trying to do. You can also send 2 players up top through the left stairs and place the rest behind Ryan's shield and start pushing the payload lane. Are they playing on top of the ship? Are they spread out evenly across the bridge line and a little bit below the ship? Using this information is great in case you wipe, since you can formulate a way to counter them. A very strong way to deal with this choke point as a team, even as a blind rush, is to send your whole team up top through the right door on the bridge, using Reinhardt's shield once again to push through the room on the right and giving you control of a good drop down. It's a good idea to leave an anti-flanker behind you so that you can deal with anybody trying to push behind your team and stop you with a dangerous ultimate like Rocket Barrage or Deadeye. Communicate the push with your team and drop down with whatever ultimate or abilities you have to disrupt the defense, and remember to play around the payload as much as possible, especially on this spot. Getting the payload to the door in the middle of the fight can be massive, because not only do you reset the timer, your enemy now spawns much further away, and you practically spawn on top of your team. This means you're essentially denying reinforcements and securing the push with reinforcements of your own. Last up, let's take a look at the final bend of Gibraltar, and this is one of the hardest points to push in the game. One of the things that makes this point so hard to push is the defending team spawning so close. I mean, seriously, you are knocking on their doors here. The theme so far has been coordination, and this is absolutely no exception. There are many flanking opportunities that teams oftentimes fail to take advantage of, and they provide the openings you need. Brute force pushes without ultimate balls can just fall flat on this choke because you have so little cover to work with while you're getting up to the corner. You're going to take a lot of damage. So let's take a look at the flanks. First off, you have the indoors flank to the left, where Lucio, Reaper, and maybe Roadhog can push and absolutely devastate the defense. By just speeding through the room and bursting out attacking the backline, you can secure quick and easy kills, and it lets the rest of your team safely push the front line. The same applies to the flank through the open bridge area to the right, although this one is a little bit harder to pull off, especially if there's a respawn coming from that side at the time of the push. The other flank that I don't see very often, and it's also very strong, is hopping over the left room with Genji and Winston. A few different heroes can get over this point, but Genji and Winston do it very well. It's not uncommon to see maybe a Widowmaker or another DPS playing on the bridge, and landing on them completely stops their attack on your team. Sometimes you can instantly eliminate them with a well-placed jump pack and a dash. Otherwise, you're able to drop down from above and create havoc, once again allowing your team to push confidently. Utilizing flanks on this particular section of the map can be critical to winning, so I highly suggest you try them out when you get a chance. That's it for this episode, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments section below which hero you'd like to see a guide about. The hero with the most comments will be our first guide. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for updates on all of our videos, and check out our website for articles on Overwatch and other things in the esports world. Get out there and be the hammer.